What is this sport? Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis, welcome to KOTN Late Night. What is this? What is this beautiful, wonderful, messy, crazy sport? What another Saturday, Landis. We're going to talk about it all for our northern audience here.
Yeah, I thought maybe like the late night portion is like, oh, we'll just settle in, we'll watch a little Georgia, Texas, and then we'll just kind of ease right into the show. And here we have Iowa State on the brink of taking what would be a pretty rough loss, I think, to Central Florida. But also, just a crazy day in general. So I'm excited to talk about it.
So we are going to talk about the crazy Southern stuff because as they just flashed the graphic in Georgia, Texas, as it winds down, there have been 7 turnovers in Georgia, Texas, and Alabama, Tennessee. Do we swear on the show or not? What's the deal?
I think we probably get away with one here or there. Yeah.
Okay. I've never sworn on any podcast before on purpose, and I don't know that I've ever done it at all.
Oh, I have. Ari and I used to let them fly when we were doing our athletic podcast. Yeah.
So I like being a show for families, for northern families. I like being a show for northern children. So one time when I was when my soccer team lost every single game and also did not score a goal the whole year, my mom said she would cover her ears and I could swear. Okay.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to give everybody, if you're a kid and your parents don't want you to hear this, get ready because I'm going to say it. This is worth it. Ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
Alabama, Tennessee was a shit show. So we're going to talk about that. That was an embarrassment. That is not even section. The MAC would reject that game. And at one point, Sean McDonough, it was so bad, Sean McDonough got to the point where he said, I don't think you'd call this a classic, not with all the penalties and turnovers and mistakes, but it sure is exciting. And I was like, you know what section is. That was section. It was a top 12 matchup between 2 supposed playoff contenders. Sean McDonough, in the course of that game, also asked Greg McElroy, former Alabama quarterback, if he still thought these teams were in the playoff race. And he was like, oh, yeah. And I wanted to reach through the TV and strangle Greg McElroy. And I invite him on the show so I can verbally strangle him here for being an absolute frickin' shill. What an abomination Alabama, Tennessee was. That was a disgrace to all of college football. If that game was Ball State, Akron, Paul Feinbaum would come on Monday and find a way to make fun of it. It was Bama, Tennessee, Bill. It sucked.
It did suck. My favorite part of Sean McDonough describing the game truthfully as he did was the stunned look on Greg McElroy's face as he did it, because Greg couldn't believe that someone dared tell the truth about a crappy SEC game that was only entertaining because of how much both teams tried to give the game back and forth to each other.
Greg Sankey's going to yell at you, Sean. I hope I didn't mean it, Greg. I still think they can both make the playoff. God, what an embarrassment. The SEC stinks. So it is not a 2-sword Saturday, though. It's just a 1-sword Saturday because this Georgia, Texas thing, it's not over, but we'll talk about it. But let's start. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. The nation. How hard did we fight as a nation for decades to rid us of the scourge of smoking? And in one 7-0 start to a season, it's back. Oh, my God. It's worth it. I don't care. Take 15 years off my life. I want to suck this thing in.
I was pretty close to going out there and finding a UDF and ripping some real heaters on this show.
Oh my God. That is,
let me tell you.
56-7. Oh man, I don't know what you got to do with that one. So listen, we want to start with Indiana football for real. And we want to do it because we know that national college football shows who 2 weeks ago literally did not know Indiana had a football team are now like, oh, Indiana's a playoff contender. And it's like, are they? Could you name 3 players on Indiana's team? Oh, they are? You're taking them now? National show? Great. Have at it. What a freaking joke. Indiana, and I would like to apologize here. What can I do? Okay, what's the thing where you do? I mean, it's not funny to do this, but I would shove this sword through my own intestines for picking Nebraska. I'm so sorry. Do you want to shove it through my intestines? I deserve it.
Listen, we learned valuable lessons along the way, right? That's okay.
Oh, there, I did it.
That was dangerous. That's a real sword.
I know. It's stagecraft, though. So I apologize. I can only go so far with this because I did pick Nebraska. That was a performance by Indiana in a 56-7 win that literally puts everybody on their schedule on notice, including Ohio State. We are thinking that somebody on this show will probably go to Indiana, Michigan in a couple weeks. That game in Bloomington at this point, Indiana is probably what, a 10-point favorite against Michigan? So. What is that game?
Yeah. When is it? It's
November 9th.
9th. Yeah. I am approved for a credential and I have a
you
hotel
are approved.
So I am planning on being there for the experience. Yeah, it's weird. Indiana, Michigan doesn't have as much luster to it because Indiana's too good and Michigan sucks. Who saw that coming?
So the deal here is, so we're going to talk about the game, but the deal is, this is what Indiana has left. Washington at Michigan State, home against Michigan, a bye. At Ohio State, off a bye. Purdue. But even if they don't beat a top 5 team on the road, they are staring down the barrel of 11-1, and that's a playoff resume. So that's one thing. This whole thing, every playoff discussion from now on, for anybody who's having an intelligent playoff discussion and watching a game and talking about it in a playoff standpoint, you have to separate performance from results. The results matter about your path, about maneuvering, about you're fighting for the 11 seed? Are you going to get a home game? Are you going to get a bye? Whatever. But then there's the performance. There's like, what did the performance in the game tell us about what you're going to do? And we don't have to be as obsessed with results because you can lose. We don't have to be as obsessed with results. Did you think they looked like a playoff-worthy team on Saturday, Landis?
I did. Yeah, they smothered Nebraska, both sides of the ball. Like, Nebraska couldn't do anything on offense, and Indiana scored 9 touchdowns on its first 11 possessions. And one of those non-scoring drives is because they got a little bit of pressure on 4th down when a guy was wide open, and it would have been a touchdown if Curtis Rourke had like an extra half a second to throw that thing down the field. They showed their depth because Curtis Rourke had to come out of the game and David Jackson came into the game, and I thought still played well, and the offense didn't really seem to skip much of a beat. They got multiple receivers that scare you. They got multiple running backs that scare you. That offensive line is legit. And the thing that I was a little uncertain of, and listen, Nebraska's offense isn't tremendous, right? But they have some skill. And they have a young quarterback. They have a young quarterback who I think can hurt some teams if he's rolling in that defense.
Let us not underrate. Let us not underrate Nebraska's skill. I think they have real skill. Isaiah Nair and Jamal Banks and Ja'Cory Barney, what he can do, and a multitude of running backs. And Dowdle, I really like. They have some real stuff. But what percentage of this was a quarterback who's been around the block and a quarterback who's a true freshman trying to figure it out? And that's not all of 56-7, but what chunk of that was Curtis Rourke has been here and was ready for this, and Dylan Raiola, like, not really all his fault, was not.
Yeah, it's a decent chunk. I don't know, 40% of it, maybe 35, 40% of it. Yeah, but I just really like Indiana. While it may not have the depth of some of the big dogs, right? I think it has a pretty strong top 22 to 20, whatever, 25 or 26 maybe, that they can roll out there. That was like my biggest takeaway, is it's just like up and down the roster, almost every position group, it just seemed like they have guys who can make a difference.
And it is another great example. It's not the first, but they kept the best parts of what was at Indiana, right? And it wasn't a ton.
Yeah,
it wasn't a ton. And then they worked the portal like crazy. And specifically, they brought in 12 of the best 15 players from a really good JMU team last year. They went and got the best quarterback in the MAC. Again, who won the transfer portal sweepstakes? I mean, that would be a good show. Run through all the portal quarterbacks and who got the best one. But we've been saying that this felt real. But again, I hope nobody is playing the Nebraska stinks game, because this is not an Nebraska stinks. This is how good Indiana is and how well coached they are. It's Kurt Cignetti to Fox on the show before the game. It was a sellout. He said, this is what winning does. It puts people in the seats. They're going to be our 12th man, and we're going to play well. And it's winning winning leads to fans, fans leads to more support leads to more winning. And this guy is coaching his rear end off. How do we do this now? There's been a long history of second-year college football coaches succeeding. We were on a run there where second-year head coaches were winning national titles. Jim Tressel was a second-year head coach. Urban Meyer was a second-year head coach. That was like a thing for a while. Does this not have to be as good of a first-year head coaching job as we've seen in the modern college football era? And I say that, and someone's going to say, well, what about this? But in terms of like what you were handed, yeah, Ryan Day went undefeated and made the playoff. But again, whatever, like sometimes you take over something. He took over nothing. Curt Cignetti built this from basically scratch with a lot of parts of his old place, some strategic other parts in the portal, and then lifting the level of play of everybody who stayed at Indiana. I mean, is this guy one of the 10 best coaches in college football right now? And I am not stopping myself from overreacting to how good Indiana was today.
His winning percentage would tell you that he is, right?
He would tell you justifiably.
Yeah, right. So, no, I think so. And maybe some people might try to use like, oh, you got lucky in the portal against you. But it's like, no, that's not the case, because a majority of what they did in the portal is just from where he was before, which I think just like further solidifies the argument that he's really good at this, right? He took all the best parts of the place that he was previously, which was an incredibly efficient winning program, and brought it to Bloomington. And right now they look like an incredibly efficient winning football team. We'll see about long-term program-wise, right? But certainly this team this year has a lot of winning pieces to it. And it's not just the transfers, as you mentioned, like it kept a lot of the really good pieces of what was there from Tom Allen's tenure in Indiana. But he just really, he kind of melded it all together, obviously in a way that's been incredibly successful. Like, and I don't think that's easy. Like there have been some like 1 year success stories of rebuilding your roster through the transfer portal. There have also been a lot of disasters in doing that. So like, I hope people don't take for granted maybe the difficulty in getting a roster to gel as quickly as Curt Cignetti's staff seems to have gotten it done.
Ask Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Everything that everybody thought Ole Miss was, they weren't a top 5 team in the preseason because of who they were last year. It's because of who they added in the portal. Everything you thought those absolute garbage frauds were, Indiana is. Indiana is. So that's the number one point. Indiana is real, and I see someone, I think Dion in the chat here on YouTube says Matt Rule is a fraud. So it's very difficult, because whenever you have a coach, it's like, hey, it takes some time. It's like, okay, that makes sense. And then you see Curt Cignetti.
Yeah.
I understand the reaction of like, why didn't you do that? And I almost wonder if like when you go to a place with higher expectations, it's like, hey, we don't want to just like do it overnight with portal stuff. Like we want to build it from, but Indiana has no expectations. Indiana doesn't have any. I mean, Bill Mallory was a pretty good coach for a while there when they made the Rose Bowl in 1967, but like not the same kind of history, not the same kind of expectations and reputation. Curt Cignetti could do whatever he wanted. So I do think it's like he put the Band-Aid on and stopped the bleeding, but I also think he's doing the surgery behind the scenes while he stopped the bleeding. And then sometimes other places, it's like, well, you can see the surgery. And it's like, hey, this is going to be surgery. And it's like, I know, but is the patient bleeding out in the surgery? It's like, hey, surgery takes 3 years. I know, but is the patient dying on the table? And Curt Cignetti is like, I'm going to put duct tape around the patient to make sure they don't die. And actually, we're going to have them up and walking around and smoking. Here, have a cigarette. We'll continue the surgery on my time. So I put Indiana in my playoff when we redid our recent playoff rankings.
Yes.
And then I picked him to lose to Nebraska. So I am a fraud. I'm an absolute fraud. Lane Kiffin should come on this show and stick this sword right through me. But I've learned there's an absolute path here. Like it is, I think in 11-1 Indiana, I don't know if they would make the Big Ten title game, because like if Oregon wins out or only has one loss and they lose to Ohio State, but that is that is a legitimately strong resume, and I think they are capable of doing it, and I think it would get them in, and I think they are capable of getting into the playoff and competing against people too.
I haven't looked at what the Big Ten title game tiebreakers would be for the scenarios that are out there, but the Oregon, Ohio State, Well, I guess Oregon could be undefeated.
It's head to head first, right? So it's
but there
Indiana
could be,
and Oregon don't play each other,
right? And Penn State doesn't play Indiana either,
right? So you're getting into
then if Ohio State were to beat Indiana and Penn State, then it would be Ohio State. So
yes, they control their own destiny, not against Oregon, but they do against Indiana and Penn State. So anyway,
I'm trying to manifest the world though, where Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana all are 11 wins or better in the regular season and are all either hosting a home playoff game or have a bye. How do we get that to happen?
So I want to manifest that too. Can we manifest it like this? If that happens, we'll have a KOTN parade. We will invite people, and I swear to God, I'll play my trumpet in the parade. We'll have a parade. We'll have an 11-win Northern parade. Okay. So let's do that, and we'll have it down the street. We'll get a permit. We'll do everything. We will film it. We will have a KOTN 11-win parade if all those things happen. But the point is, because here's the point. Michigan is done. The national champions are done. Alabama has fallen off a cliff. Mm-hmm. We know why Michigan fell off the cliff. We were like, Michigan, you're walking towards a cliff. You know you're walking towards a cliff. And Harbaugh was like, yeah, I'm walking towards a cliff. And then Harbaugh jumped off the cliff, and so did Blake Corum and everybody else on the team. They all jumped off the cliff. And we're like, well, we knew that was going to happen. And Bama, Nick Saban was like, hey, I'm going hiking. I don't jump off cliffs, but I'm leaving. I'm going into the woods. And Bama was like, oh, that cliff, we're not worried about that at all. And the whole national media was like, Bama and a cliff? Have you seen Kalen DeBoer coach? And Bama is at the bottom of 100-foot drop with 50 broken bones. So that's similar. However you got to the cliff, both Bama and Michigan fell off. Indiana has risen up. Illinois has risen up. Who in the SEC has risen up to replace Bama? Nobody. So that's why the SEC sucks. So that's not what we're doing yet, because I want to do the second part of the Indiana format. But just in case you're here early, we just want to make the point that the SEC absolutely, positively, like not even doing a bit, the SEC sucks. Kurt Cignetti needs a huge contract extension before the end of this regular season. 2020 was Mel Tucker's first year at Michigan State. It was a lost year. It was a COVID year. It almost doesn't count. I think Michigan State might have been 2-4. Nobody counted it against Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker in his second year in 2021 started 8-0. They started talking about a contract. They then lost 2 out of 3, but when they were 9-2, coming off a huge loss to Ohio State, they announced a 10-year, $95 million contract for Mel Tucker, $9.5 million a year. They liked what they saw, and they locked it down before somebody could come out and take him. Now, I think maybe other people were already talking to him, LSU and some other people, but Michigan State and their big money donors were proactive about it. Do you want to guess where Kurt Cignetti ranks in current salary among all FBS coaches and among Big Ten coaches? There are 18 teams in the Big Ten. Do you want to guess either of those based on the USA Today database?
In the Big Ten, I would guess that he is 16th.
He is 15th.
Okay.
Maybe. Because Northwestern's a private school, doesn't have to reveal it. I would doubt David Braun makes more than Kurt Cignetti. Yeah, he makes more than Deshaun Foster, first-year coach at UCLA, and he makes more than Ryan Walters, second-year coach at Purdue, who had never been a head coach before, and their program's on fire. Those are the only 3 people he makes more than. Do you want to guess where he ranks nationally?
39th.
49th. Lock him down. Do not let Florida or one of these inflamed hemorrhoids of a Southern program come steal him. Whatever you have in NIL, whoever those people are, go do something, because I think he would take it. This is the program that finally gave him an opportunity. And if he can make the playoff at Indiana in year 1, why would he leave? We've talked about how he's an older head coach. Lock him down now. And don't, like, the Mel Tucker thing, people might have snickered at that. Like, when you're in that spot and you're trying to fend off the desperate, high money, illogical pandering ding-dongs in the South who try to solve all their problems, their marital problems, their work problems, their self-esteem problems by throwing money at a coaching hire. You have to fight them before they come to the door. So if Indiana waits, they're either going to lose him or it's only going to cost more. I would give him the Mel Tucker contract tomorrow, and I'm not joking. He's making $4.25 million this year. He should be making double that. If they want to give him a 7-year, $70 million contract tomorrow, I would approve of it. And they should be able to find the money to do it. Yes, they're overpaid. College football head coaches are overpaid. But when they get something going, they are super important to winning. And when they get something going, it really matters to the university. And Iowa State just went ahead with 30 seconds left against UCF. Take that, Vibes. You doubted your Vibes. Did you doubt the Cyclone Vibes? I'm getting out the second sword.
I was doubting the Vibes. Yeah. Rocco Beck just ran it in for a 36-35 lead with 30 seconds left pending an extra point. I guess they'll go for 2.
Yeah.
I was doubting the Vibes. No, on Cignetti, I'm 100% with you. I don't know. I don't know the dynamics there in Indiana, what the financials are, what kind of shape the athletic department is in to try to pull off something like that. But whatever needs to happen, if it is within the realm of possibility there, they should do it, because Florida, Auburn, like, I don't like pick an SEC team that's they're all going to come after him. There might even I don't know. I guess there's not really anybody in the Big Ten that's so bad off right now, but
somebody on here suggested West Virginia. We have a different coach for West Virginia. Don't worry.
But also, what if Lincoln Riley is gone at USC, right? And then someone from the Big Ten might shuffle over to there, and there's a Big Ten job open that's above what Indiana is. Like that would worry me too if I'm Indiana. Lock them up.
This is what I would have happen if Lincoln Riley gets fired. Lincoln Riley blows, by the way. Lincoln Riley is 5-9 in his last 14 games. USC is not part of the South. We never wanted them. We're never taking them. And Lincoln Riley sucks at this. He's an embarrassment.
Did you see the post-game quote from Lincoln Riley?
Give it to me. God, I'm going through 2 packs. Give it to me. God, Lincoln Riley sucking is oh my God.
I forget the exact wording of the question, but it was like, why can't your team perform late in games to pull out wins? And Lincoln Riley said, I don't know.
That's code for because I suck and I can't say it. You frickin' suck, Lincoln Riley, and you're in the South with your beautiful sunshine. This is what I would do if I were Indiana. Lincoln Riley gets fired. Indiana flies Curt Cignetti to LA. They make a video. They take him out to the Malibu boardwalk, right? Or whatever. And there's all the people walking by.
Santa Monica Pier.
Santa Monica Pier. Take him out to Santa Monica Pier. And he walks out to the end of it. And you think that he is taking the USC job. And then the camera pans to the side and he's actually taking a leak off the pier. And then he lights up a heater and he says, I'm not going anywhere. And then USC can go hire some dipshit to run that reject of a program. My God, how much better could this world be? Listen, I've lived a privileged, lucky life so far. I can't believe this. The way the North has risen up and everybody in the South absolutely blows. I am so happy. Okay.
Sometimes things just really line up for you.
Rocco Beck.
You got to take advantage. You got to take advantage when that happens.
Oh my God. So please tell a friend, not joking. I was just ripping everybody in the South on Twitter all day. And it's just I love interacting with people there. That's not making us any money. That's not what we're about. If you like this, nobody else is doing this. Nobody else is telling you the truth about this crap and also making the South feel bad about itself. Please give us a thumb. Please subscribe. Please tell people. And I want 30 seconds here, right? I don't think there's anybody that has a better combination of talking ball and having fun. I think there are places that have fun and maybe they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I think there are places that talk ball and are boring as all get out. So Landis, how much fun do we have on this frickin' show? And nobody tells the South to cram it.
We own that territory. Especially just you own that territory. But yeah, no one tells the South to cram it. No one's out there. It's you and who's the ESPN guy, Sean McDonough. It's you and Sean McDonough are the only SEC truth tellers out there.
So anyway, just like, please help us here because we want to keep doing this, but we have to have an audience to do it, right? And we're thrilled by what's happened so far. But frankly, I think the show is good enough and the South is bad enough and the North is good enough that it should be even bigger. So let's get this rolling. Illinois, Michigan. Michigan's done. I said, like, if the quarterback's not solved here, then like that's it. It doesn't mean the program's done forever. Michigan's done for this year. So I thought Michigan had a role to play potentially in this season. They get Oregon at home. They go to Ohio State. They go to Indiana. They're done. They are in. Are they going to make a bowl territory at this point? Jack Tuttle's numbers are not the worst numbers of the day because we're going to talk about Nico Iamaleava and Jalen Milroe. And by the way, whatever, I get it. Georgia won. Everything they got was a short field. Carson Beck stinks, and Texas might have a quarterback controversy. So the quarterback performances for the 4 SEC teams in these huge games today were suck, and suck. Were they not? Did you see any good quarterback play out of that group? I guess we have to bow down at the altar of Garrett frickin' Nussmeier of LSU. Good luck with that. That altar's going to be on fire, just like the Jackson Dart altar's on fire. The quarterback play is awful in the SEC. Is it not? Before we talk about Michigan's awful quarterback play?
I'm unimpressed. I didn't watch. I haven't gotten eyeballs on Garrett Nussmeier and LSU to know what happened there, but not impressed with anything I saw quarterback wise in the 2 big SEC games today. Not at all. No.
So Michigan, Jack Tuttle, 20 of 32 for 208 yards, no touchdowns, and an absolute back-breaking, game-killing pick. But here was the bigger part of that. I think this is where this shows up more because Illinois beat Michigan 21-7. Michigan outgained Illinois 322 to 267, and actually they more than doubled their passing yards. Illinois threw for 80 yards in this game, and Luke Altmaier has been pretty good this year. Michigan threw for 208, but I think this is the deal. Michigan ran 38 times for 114 yards, 3 yards per carry, and Illinois has not been a good run defense. Illinois ran for 38 times for 187 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. The lack of respect for the Michigan passing game allowed Illinois to sell out on the run, and that is a non-functional reality for Michigan for the rest of the season. And Jack Tuttle's not the answer, just like Alex Orji wasn't the answer, just like Davis Warren wasn't the answer. I think they are in Jaden Davis territory, play the true freshman. I don't know why you wouldn't. And it is a failure. It is an absolute abject, complete failure by Michigan to identify, develop, play a competent quarterback coming off a national championship year. But we kind of know why it happened. I think there's 2 things that happen here. And I think this first one can't be underrated. Matt Weiss was their quarterbacks coach a couple of years ago, and he got in trouble for all this computer stuff. So their quarterbacks coach got fired for off the field stuff that was like a big deal. And I don't know what that did to their quarterback development, but I think it might have done something. And then, by the way, they absolutely should have gotten somebody in the portal this offseason, and they didn't because everybody was leaving their program. They had the NCAA stuff. Sharon Moore was just taking over, and they absolutely failed. Curtis Cignetti could get Curtis Rourke, but Michigan couldn't. That's an abject failure by Michigan, but we understand it. So this is not, I am not at Michigan's dead forever, but they're dead for this year. And we both picked Michigan to win this game. It was a last gasp. Iowa State won, by the way. We'll get to them in a second.
They did win.
A last gasp for Michigan, and now they're out of breath.
Yeah, I thought you made a really good point about the run defense and what that said about Michigan, Illinois run defense, what that said about Michigan's passing game. Because Michigan, I thought, maybe for like the first time all year, like kind of had guys open, and Jack Tuttle missed a lot of throws. You're right. I guess stat line was respectable, if only because it had been so terrible, but from all his predecessors before then. But I thought he missed a lot of what should be easy throws for most Power 5 quarterbacks to make, especially the quarterback at Michigan. So, and I was already at I think I'm a little bit different mindset of you on the quarterback thing. Like, I am pretty blown away that Michigan let it get to this point, and that everyone in that building knew what that quarterback room was and did nothing about it. Like, and I get, even if the timing was poor with the Jim Harbaugh decision to actually leave for the NFL and actually getting Sharon Moore in place, but like, was there nothing happening before then? Like, were they not kicking the tires on anything prior to all that happening that would have perhaps left Michigan in a spot to still land a transfer quarterback, even given all the transition?
Yeah.
And then after spring ball, they didn't do that either.
Right.
They were just like, leaks stories about, hey, Alex Horty looks pretty good in spring practice. You can't watch any of it, but believe us, he looks pretty good. And then we get to the point where finally it's like the guy who's supposed to be the good one, Jack Tuttle, takes the field. And he's certainly better than what they've had, but I don't think he's anywhere near good enough for Michigan to do anything of note this year.
Missing throws all over the place. And the backbreaker is they have to go for it on a 4th and 18. And they actually hit a back shoulder throw to Colston Loveland down the sideline. That is, it was a 29-yard gain. It was probably the best Michigan pass play of the year on 4th and 18. And it's like, Michigan is alive.
Mm-hmm.
And the next play, Jack Tuttle airmails one and hits an Illinois guy in the chest. And that's it. And they also had a horrible hit the defender in the chest interception taken away by a penalty, right? He hit Miles Scott in the chest earlier in the game.
Yeah, but then Michigan ended up turning the ball right back after that. And Jack Tuttle also fumbled too. So Michigan only had three rushes of 10 yards or more in the game. And one of them was like a 13-yard Jack Tuttle scramble where Gabe Akis punched the ball out of his hands and Illinois got the ball back. So like even that one explosive play that Michigan like managed to muster ended up with a turnover.
So let's talk about, so Michigan's done. It's not like we're not going to talk about Michigan on this show ever again. We're still going to talk about them every Monday and every Thursday, but they are not impactful to Northern football. And it's one of those things like they'll be back. Like, do you think I like, as the last word on Michigan, as we not talk about, we won't talk about for the next 6 weeks, but like we are going to, I am not, because if they play Jaden Davis, there's a reason to talk about him. I am not viewing this as that's it. This staff is done. Sharon Moore was the wrong guy. Michigan can't get talent. I am giving them a break. I am acknowledging the abject failure, but I don't know if it's a pass, but I get it. Like, you see something go wrong. It's like, why did that go wrong? At least there's an answer of why it went wrong. So then it's just like, we all would agree on it. It's like, well, do you buy it or not? Like, so I think I'm buying the excuse more than you are, but it's not a mystery exactly, right? So there is some developmental failure and some talent identification failure. Because as you said, they had 3 guys in the room behind J.J. McCarthy last year, none of whom are competent college football quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. So the only thing they could have done was get a transfer guy, which if Harbaugh had stayed, I assume they would have done. But also, like, well, I don't know that you should be living or dying in the portal, even though I think the stats 14 of 18 Big Ten teams this year are playing transfer quarterback. So I'll wait to see what Michigan does next year. And I will do so with some anticipation. Art, do you take this as a black mark against the current staff?
Yeah, I do. But I think even at least the offensive staff, right? Well, we've talked about that too. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It actually feels so. Like, I guess it's like it's Jerome Moore's first year. We're like Ryan Day when he was at Ohio State. Like, after 1 year of like having to retool his defensive staff, like got it wrong, and he just let it drag on for another year because it was like the COVID year, and they still wanted the national championship. Like, he very clearly got it wrong and let it drag on another year. I don't think Michigan can let it drag on another year, or else it's going to set itself up for perhaps even a further slip back when it comes to its offense. Like, go get a real offensive coordinator, go get a real person who can recruit and develop quarterbacks. Like, Sharon Moore is new to this. I don't think he put together a great staff. I think he was maybe in a tough spot to try to put together a great staff, but the results are what the results are. So I do think Michigan needs to retool some things with this coaching staff.
We would probably fire Kirk Campbell, the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, right?
Or just like make him an analyst again. Yeah, like just go hire a real hitter to be your offensive coordinator.
Yeah. Okay. Illinois made plays. Brett Bielema said a lot of smart, I think, encouraging things that like Illinois fans want to hear about. Hey, you don't beat Michigan in a week. You beat Michigan with 365 days of this. Like, I thought Illinois was going to be down this year, but this is like Badger Brett is back. This is program builder, culture builder, identity builder. And I'll tell you what, early on there, they only threw for 80 yards. And we've talked about what a good job he did in the portal, getting 2 new offensive tackles. And those new offensive tackles were getting their doors blown off by Josiah Stewart early in the game. And it was like, hey, great job there. But still can't. Well, nobody can block Josiah Stewart. That's why he was first team All North on the KOTN midseason team. He's awesome. And there were parts of it today where I was like, gosh, this Michigan defense is still really good. But it's like Bielema did in year one, right? When he's just winning games. I think he is excellent. I was trying to put a number on it. I think he's excellent in the stuff has gone wrong, win anyway style of coaching. And I think he's got a lot of buy-in right now with his guys. And then guys like Gabe Akis and some guys defensively were getting it done. The Scott brothers in the back end. We know they're not brothers, but we call them. So like, I thought that was a good Bielema game, a good Illinois defense game, and just like a good, like, that feels like a program win to me with Illinois today.
Yeah, and I kind of thought it was all maybe sewn up in that fake punt that Illinois ran, right? At the beginning of the second half when it was a touchdown game, I think at that point, right? And you think Michigan's going to get the ball back and make a game of this thing and maybe put Illinois on tilt a little bit, and they just like perfect timing to run a fake punt, go down the field and score. Like the game was kind of over from that point, right? So like that roll of the dice there from Brett Bielema, I think was pretty illustrative of like how he wants to run this program and run this team and try to win games when like they are. Whatever we think about Michigan, Illinois is still at a talent disadvantage in that game, right? Yeah. So you got to find ways to win like that in a matchup like that, and he did. And I even like Luke Altmaier to me, I thought he played really well, even if his stat line wasn't all that impressive and didn't really blow you away. They had some hidden yardage in there by attacking some vulnerabilities in Michigan's secondary that resulted in pass interference penalties, but no passing production. Yeah. So like, and then Luke Altmaier like scrambled a little bit, made some plays with his feet, extended plays at times, like did enough clearly on offense. And then I thought Illinois' defense was awesome. It's a little easier, right, when you don't have to worry about a team like doing one entire facet of offensive play. But for a team that really has gotten pushed around sometimes and trying to stop the run, it went up against a team that prides itself on doing that and really took that away from Michigan.
Illinois has 4 very winnable games left. Home games with Minnesota and Michigan State, at Rutgers, and then Northwestern to end the season in Wrigley. But they're at Oregon next. And that is like, is that like super interesting to you? Next Saturday at Oregon, 3:30. Like, is there any way that Illinois can rise up to that after and we're not going to talk about Oregon a ton on this show, but they'll talk about them a lot on Monday because they're going to be number 1 on Monday. They better be number 1. This bullcrap Georgia stuff. Texas implodes. They have a quarterback controversy. Grit. Kirby's being Kirby. Like, Oregon should be number 1. So we'll talk about them Monday. Yeah. Like, can Illinois go to Autzen and give Oregon a game?
I don't know. I part of me that this was such a moment for the Illinois football program. Like so much went into this game against Michigan and putting enough out there to beat that team that, you know, it's just ripe for a letdown. But Illinois also got the win and like should also be feeling good about itself going to play a team like Oregon. So there's two sides of that coin. I'm not 100% certain what side we're going to get, but I think so. Like I think if Illinois is like game to hang in the trenches with Michigan, then it can probably get up to do that against anybody else in the Big Ten, or like be a little pesky at least, right? So I don't know. I'm interested to see what that line will be. I don't think there's anything out yet, but I'm gonna watch it. Like it's definitely an interesting spot for Oregon, but maybe Illinois doesn't quite have the firepower to keep up there.
What do you think that line is? Like 10.5, 13.5? What's that line?
I would bet that it's like
17.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, it's one of those things where we can't define Illinois' season by whether they compete at Oregon or not, because they're staring at 10-2. So, and then it's a question of like, I don't know, like is 10-2 Illinois, whose best win is over Michigan and lost on the road to Penn State and Oregon, who are 2 playoff teams? Like, is that a backdoor playoff case? Not everything's a playoff case, but
the Penn State Illinois spread was 17.5,
which we thought was high. So, okay. So, I mean, the bottom line is I thought Illinois was going to have a terrible season. Another huge miss by me. Like, great program win and great Bielema. Like I just think Illinois, like, how do you feel about your coach? Shouldn't Illinois fans like feel legitimately awesome about where the program is right now?
Yeah, they definitely should. Yeah.
Okay. God, let's talk about, what's the thing I wanted to talk about? That's right. How the SEC stinks. Let's talk about this abomination of an Alabama-Tennessee game. If you didn't watch it, the final score of Alabama-Tennessee was penalties 26, Tennessee 24, Alabama 17. There were 26 penalties in Alabama, Tennessee. Jalen Milroe and Nico Iamaleava were a combined 39 of 72. That's 54%. 6 yards per attempt. 2 touchdowns, 3 picks combined. This game had, excuse me for a second. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. 11 punts, 5 turnovers, 5 touchdowns, 5 field goal attempts, only 2 of which were made, and 1 stoppage on downs. So this was horrible. There were multiple throws, Landis, in this game where Nico Iamaleava and Jalen Milroe just like if you want to say like, oh, great defensive performance, they were missing dudes all day in a way that I thought, well, Eli Holstein would have made that throw, and Jake Retzlaff would have made that throw, and Rocco Becht would have made that throw, and Curtis Rourke would have made that throw, and Dylan Gabriel would have made that throw, and Will Howard would have made that throw, and all these guys. Okay, right? Michigan doesn't have a quarterback, and Iowa doesn't have a quarterback. Like almost everybody in the North has a quarterback besides those teams, and Tennessee and Bama didn't have quarterbacks today. It was bad football. Like, and I know what I am, but you are a man of honor and an observer of ball. And didn't you think it was a lot of bad football?
Yeah, I thought I thought Tennessee's defensive line was pretty impressive, but aside from that, it was a lot of bad football. I really enjoy the dynamic at Tennessee where when receivers are wide open, Nico overthrows them almost every time. And then when he throws absolute seeds, the guys are recovered, they just drop the ball. It's great. It's a great thing they have going on there.
Tennessee's not good.
Their offense is bad. Their offense is very bad. They got nothing going on there.
And I get it, like how they're getting after you, whatever. But guess what? Like Iowa gets after you, and Aiden Childs ripped them up tonight. Like Aiden Childs would have been the best quarterback in the Alabama-Tennessee game. And Aiden Childs didn't know what he was doing for the first 6 games of the year. Like, I was amazed. Kalen DeBoer is completely overwhelmed by the moment. You can see it on him. He gives so many in-game interviews. I feel like every time I turn on the game there, he's talking to somebody during the game. And every time he talks, I can imagine every Alabama fan losing more confidence in him. This is not it. Like, and I would be more worried about Kalen DeBoer at Alabama than I would about Sharon Moore at Michigan. I don't know if this is it, brother. This is our train wreck.
Did you know? So I didn't know this. Nick Saban said this on game day that like within Alabama, like the program, the boosters, the fans, Tennessee is a much bigger deal than Auburn. Like, it blew my mind that Nick Saban said that. Nick Saban said that he had a hard time getting his players up for the Auburn game sometimes and never had an issue with Tennessee. And I feel like the weight of the importance of that game, you could like see it on Kalen DeBoer's face as it was getting away from Alabama at the end and he was standing on the sideline. So, yeah, I'm with you 100% on the comparison to Sharon Moore. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little surprised. Because even if it was like an odd hire, like I still think Kalen DeBoer maybe is an excellent football coach, is in the absolute wrong spot, but he's pretty clearly in the absolute wrong spot, I think. Did you hear, by the way, what Kirby Smart said post game?
What did he say?
Would you like me to hit you with that? It's going to fire you up.
Oh my! Did he say the shove turned the season around?
No, I got a 20-second clip here of what Kirby said after the game. Nobody gave us a chance. To ESPN, your whole network doubted us. Nobody believed in us. And then they tried to rob us with calls in this place. And these guys are so resilient.
This is war. I hope we see you, Kirby. I hope Coach Sig sees you in the postseason, brother. And I hope Coach Sig runs this sword right through your dog.
Caleb in the chat said, get the second sword.
Let's go. Listen, brother, we've done it once before. Scoreboard. We'll do it again. So like, because your defense played pretty well and gave your overrated quarterback short fields all night, like, we get it. Texas peed down its leg tonight. We get it. But here's the thing, brother. We're not scared anymore. There's nothing happening in the South that scares us anymore. And that's new. That used to be the thing. Whatever we were doing up here, we were scared of what was going to happen when we saw you guys. And that is completely gone. There is nothing scary happening down there. And what's happening at Oregon, and what's happening at Ohio State, and what's happening at Penn State, and what's happening at Iowa State, and what's happening at Kansas State, and what's happening at Pitt, and what's happening at Indiana, and all over the North, you should be scared of us. So we're ready for it. We welcome it. And let's frickin' go, Curb. Let's go. Are you scared? Who's scared? If you're in the chat, tell us if you're scared, or tell us if you're not scared of the South anymore, because the worm has turned. So the world better get used to it, because this is the new reality. And if you are out there when you're trying to make fun of a crappy Southern game like Alabama, Tennessee, you're making jokes about, like, it feels like a Big Ten game. Get out. The SEC stinks on its own, and the North is ready. So this is the new world. So you know what, Kirby? You're lucky because you get to hang out in the South right now. But we'll see you in December, brother. And nobody's scared.
Well, pedestrians in Athens, Georgia might be scared. And also, I guess, like, opposing teams' quarterbacks if they venture over to the wrong sideline. But aside from those two, yeah.
Didn't you think when they overturned the call that he was going to shove a ref?
Yes.
I will shove you.
Yeah.
I don't like to hate people. I think I might hate Kirby Smart. I actually think I might. Like, I like to, you try to learn things, like, you hate people's actions. I hate the thing that you did, right? You learn this from marriage. You learn this from being in journalism and talking and writing about people. But I actually think I might hate Kirby Smart, the person, and the coach and the program leader. And like, I think, like, I do hate his actions. I actually think I might hate him as an actual person. So I don't know. Is it okay for me to say? Can I say that I hate a coach?
I think you should say what's on your heart. Yeah. If that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
No, if it's on my heart, I definitely hate him then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hate that guy. I hate him. And show him the clip. He's a danger to society, and he's a freaking D-bag. How about that? All right. I thought Alabama, Tennessee was terrible. I don't think either of those are playoff-worthy teams. And I'm really in a spot, right? So Georgia and Texas are clearly on a playoff path right now. Mm-hmm. But, like, I really don't know who the third best team in the SEC is supposed to be. And I guess you can throw LSU at me, and I'll throw it back in your face because they lost to 4-loss USC. But just, I mean, like, realistically, not in a guy swinging his sword on a Northern show way. Like, I think there are more legitimate playoff contenders in the Big Ten and in the North than there are in the SEC and in the South.
I think that's right. I mean, there are teams that have played, once you get past the top, right? The teams in, like, the 3, 4, 5, 6 spots in the Big Ten have played better football, I think.
They've played better football. And it's not even like a record comparison. It's like, who's played better football? So, I think Indiana would have boat raced either Tennessee or Alabama today with the mistakes they made and the mistakes Indiana does not make.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, especially for a team like Indiana, they're just so precise with everything they do. And these SEC teams that are supposed to be the best teams in the sport are sloppy. Even the best ones, like Texas had not quite looked that way, but it certainly looks so today. I don't know that any of the best teams in the North have consistently looked sloppy. Like, sloppy moments here and there. It's college football, but like, that being your defining characteristic, I don't think that is true of any of the teams we talk about.
Yeah, and again, it's like this, like, so many turnovers in both those games today, and it is much less about defensive pressure forcing things and much more about offenses handing things over. I just think that's a realistic portrayal of the Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, Texas games today. On our list of rooting interests about Southern football on KOTN, we've put out the guide. We'll eventually send out things so people can laminate it and put it in their wallet, put it in their purse, have it in their glove box, in their car, whatever they need to do. Number one is, root for anything when it comes to the SEC and Southern football. Root for anything that destroys the myth of Southern and SEC superiority. That's the number one thing we root for. Number two is root for anything that hurts or destroys the national media bias for the SEC, right? So if we can do things like ESPN's been hyping something up all week and then something happens contrary to that, that's good. That's the number two thing we root for. Number three is root against Georgia. Number four is root against Bama. Number five is root for chaos. So the number three was root against Georgia. That means root for Texas today. So that didn't happen. But chaos, I do think Arch replacing Ewers at the end of the first half. Now, Ewers did come back in. That's enough chaos for me. If the team that had been number one, and I think clearly had looked like the best team in the country, honestly, until this point, might have a quarterback, if not controversy, question. I'm intrigued by that, and I'll take it. If Georgia's going to win, I'll take Texas I'll take what I can get.
I think two things about Texas. Well, one, a definite quarterback questions, and that might even be soft pedaling it, right? Because now Sark has ripped off the Band-Aid, right? People have wondered since Arch got there, would Sark ever bench Quinn Ewers for Arch Manning? And I think a lot of people were like, probably not. Like, it would have to get pretty bad for him to do that. And then he did it in the biggest game of the year and then put Quinn Ewers back in there. So now it's just going to linger all year for them.
Yeah.
You've shown a willingness to do it, and we're going to ask you about it basically every week now. So good luck with that, Sark. I also thought that Texas's offensive line looked vulnerable for the first time this year. And Georgia's got some guys up front, right?
They do.
But
they do, for sure.
That I was a little taken aback by the pressure that Georgia was getting on Texas's offense, because I thought that was maybe the best offensive line in the country. Now, certainly rethinking that, but also now rethinking who else can maybe look vulnerable down the line when Texas gets into matchups like this.
I still do think potentially that Georgia is a very imbalanced team. I was not super impressed by what Georgia did offensively. Yards in that game, Georgia 283, Texas 259. That is crazy. And here were the scoring drives for Georgia. 4 plays, 13 yards, 7 plays, 13 yards, 3 plays, 34 yards, 7 plays, 25 yards, 4 plays, 4 yards, and then 1 drive in the fourth quarter. So they went up 23-0 without a scoring drive of more than 34 yards. Everything they did offensively was set up by their defense. And then their defense came out to start the second half and gave stuff up. So they did have a put away drive at the end, 11 plays, 89 yards. You got to tip the cap there to them, because that was after Texas had pulled back within 1 score at 23-15. But otherwise, I thought there were real questions about Carson Beck. And like, the thing about putting Arch in, it's like good. Chaos is good. Carson Beck was 23 of 41 for 175. Ewers was 25 of 43 for 211. Arch was not very good when he was in, 3 of 6 for 19. But I actually think Arch Manning might be the best quarterback in the SEC, or at least might be the best quarterback among the 4 teams who played today. I mean, we know what Jalen Milroe can do with his legs and stuff. I still think he's an inconsistent passer. And Arch gave Texas something with his legs that mattered for a little bit there.
Yeah.
So like I understood why Steve Sarkisian did it, but I also think it is potentially problematic for them, which is good. Good. Screw up Texas.
Yeah, it's great. We love the chaos.
I love the chaos. Let's talk about a few more things. Iowa State's a bunch of ballers. So we will also talk more about BYU on Monday. If you did not stay up until 2:00 in the morning screaming at your TV like I did on Friday night, did you stay up and watch BYU win?
So I was watching it on my couch and I definitely fell asleep, but then I woke back up to see the game-winning touchdown. Or maybe the game-winning touchdown woke me up. Maybe might be the more correct way to say it. So
Rocco Becht for Iowa State and Jake Retzloff for BYU, absolute ballers with their legs, with their arms, with the game on the line, converting 4th downs, making big throws, scrambling when they need to. I actually did not really notice how Iowa State won, but they even came back. Rocco Becht threw a pick 6 that was huge. So Iowa State should have tied it at 28, but then they get the extra point block. So that's like deflating. They're down by 1. They get a stop. They get the ball back. They're driving again. Rocco Becht, it's a tip ball. It's a little bit of an inaccurate throw, I think, but it's a tip ball, and the tip goes to UCF, and the UCF dude runs for a touchdown, except he drops the ball on the half-yard line. If I were a head coach, I legitimately would make an announcement. if you drop the ball in the open field short of the end zone, I'm kicking you off the team. It is the stupidest thing that players do. And I understand that they're young men. It is inexcusably stupid. And the UCF guy did it. And to your point, no Iowa State guy picked it up. If they had picked it up in the end zone, it would have been Iowa State ball. Because nobody picked it up, UCF got it at the 1 and punched it in. So now they're down 8. And then Iowa State drives, and then Iowa and gets a touchdown, then they stop them, then they drive again. Like it's ridiculous.
Iowa State drove for a field goal.
For a field goal.
Then stopped them and then got the ball back. I'm just like looking through the plays because I was like half paying attention. There were a couple Rocco Beck scrambles in there. Scramble for 8, couple completions to Jalen Knoll, pass interference call that took him from the 19 down to the 4, and then Rocco Beck ran twice and scored on the second run.
Just like unbelievable, like just the things that these undefeated teams are doing. Indiana has kind of rolled people. Indiana's a machine, but Pitt, BYU, and Iowa State to be undefeated are just absolute clutch, gutsy ballers. Like the whole roster, but they have playmakers, whether it's Des Reed at Pitt, whether it's Darius Lassiter at BYU, whether it's Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins at Iowa State, and then they have quarterbacks who make plays when they need to. And like it's wild that they've managed to do this. But again, I think it can be simultaneously wild, a little bit lucky, incredibly clutch, but also totally real. Like, I don't think you could come in and be like, oh, they're not that good. They're awesome. They make so many winning plays, it blows your mind.
Yeah, I think so. Matt Campbell we talked about it on Thursday. Matt Campbell was saying some stuff during the week about how he hasn't liked that Iowa State had not yet played a complete game, that had trailed in the first half of its prior 2 wins, and that it was losing at the half in the game that it won against Iowa earlier in the year. But it had never really been sort of on that razor's edge. I guess in the Iowa game it kind of was, but recently, like, it had pulled away rather early from the other 2 teams that it went down to. This was like down to the wire clearly, and like while it might be frustrating the path Iowa State took to get there, I would imagine that Matt Campbell feels pretty good about the resolve that his team showed to pull it out in the end, right? So, I think it's real. Like I think I was doubting the vibes. I think I said when they were down 28-14, I think I might have sent the message that said I think the vibes are dead.
Yeah,
because I'm a fool. The vibes are not dead. The vibes have never been stronger. That's what happened to Iowa State today.
Oh my god,
the vibes took it to another level.
Oh my god,
lose a game.
Oh my god, and it's crazy. Like we've been saying, like the Big 12 is like playing crazy exciting games, but the difference is I think like the teams that are winning them are actually good, which is the difference from section. There's so much section going on, but when you see BYU make winning plays, when you see Iowa State make winning plays, again, I just think like Rocco Becht and Jake Retzlaff this weekend like did things that I did not see Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Nico Iamaleava, and Jalen Milroe do. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I guess Nico threw the touchdown pass at the end, right? But even that was like almost dropped. It was like, to my point about it, making really good throws that go for nothing. It was almost dropped. No, you're right. Like with like Rocco Beck, his final stat line won't blow you away. Anybody who bothers to go to look at it, but he was making some crazy. Once they got down 20, I think it was 28-14. He was just like, okay, I'm going to go win the game. And like was scrambling like a madman. He led back-to-back touchdown drives to pull them within 1 because they missed the extra point or got the extra point blocked, I think. They were down 28-27. And he did throw a pick in there that was returned for an almost touchdown, but it wasn't like he made a boneheaded play. He threw a ball that went off a receiver's hands that got picked out of the air, right? So like,
he's not doing stuff. He's not just hitting defenders in the chest for no reason because he doesn't know how to read defenses.
No, he was a madman for the last, like, I don't know, 20 minutes of that game, in a way that I don't know that I've seen from a lot of other quarterbacks this year.
In a way that I think when you look at Iowa State and BYU being undefeated and Kansas State having only a loss to BYU, that feels like 3 legit playoff contenders. I think 2 of those 3, that's going to be the Big 12 title game. And I think like that they are all in the mix really for the playoff, especially in a situation where honestly, like not joking, the SEC is going to have some issues if the committee is honest about it. And if Greg Sankey doesn't get to pout his way to 5 playoff teams, they are going to have real issues about who are your playoff teams for real, in a way that like, I think the Big 12 has 3 excellent teams to put out there. Let's do 2 more games real quick before we get to Monday. Yep. If you're here please tell a friend about this show. If you're here, please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe. Please help us spread the word. We think we're doing something cool here, and we just want more people to hear about it because we think something is happening in this sport. And we think simultaneously two things need to be happening while these performances are put on the field. The North needs to be celebrated for playing great ball, and the South needs to be told to cram it. And I will challenge you to find another place that does it like this. And we are not making it up. We are spitting hot, fiery truths at you. And you know it. And that's why you're here. So please get more people here because I think there's like a lot of smug ding-dongs spouting cliches and telling you what a great team Georgia is who are out there doing other stuff. And it's a freaking joke. And there are a lot of people out there who make their shows about themselves. We want to make this show about you guys because we want to speak truth about the sport you love to the audience that we love that has not been served by this freaking media. The national media and the Southern media have not served you, and we want to serve you. But if we're going to serve you, we have to be here. And if we're going to be here, we have to have people watching our show. So we need to earn it. We do. We need to earn it with you. We're not asking for charity. But if you think this is fun and you think it's good ball talk and it fills a gap in this world, please help us spread the word. 2 more games. K-State, West Virginia. K-State rolled at West Virginia in a game that's like, I still think like Morgantown, that's not an easy trip, but they absolutely dominated. And the point you made is they did it like with no Avery Johnson running the ball. This was Avery Johnson throwing the ball and just like they took it to the Mountaineers, man. And it was close at half and then they pulled away.
They didn't really run the ball at all. 26 carries for 114 yards. DJ Giddens scored twice, but he had 19 carries for 57 yards. And Avery Johnson did not have any rushing production. He was 19 of 29 for 298 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. This was, and then they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different players make a catch in this game. Nobody had more. No one player had more than 3 receptions.
Okay.
But there were 19 receptions for 298 yards. Yeah, this was, I don't know. I just kind of, West Virginia does not have a good secondary. Kansas State took advantage of it. But I really feel like Avery Johnson week after week is like making some progress, isn't he? Like, I don't know.
He is absolutely making progress.
Maybe I'm dumb to like buy into it, but I really feel like he's finding his footing a little bit.
He really is. Like, he's dangerous. It's just the difference. I mean, obviously it's the whole sport now, but when you have a quarterback who can move, it makes such a difference. And he always could move, but was he keeping his eyes downfield? Was he making throws down the field while he was moving? And that's what he's figuring out now. And you can see the confidence growing and it makes them really hard to defend. And I think to your point, like they didn't run the ball well, but the fact that DJ Giddens had dropped 180 and 180 the last 2 games, guess what? You got to stop the run. Guess what that opens up? Avery Johnson throwing the ball. I think they have really good balance there right now. I think Chris Klein is a good coach. I think they're excellent. And I think I just think that was an impressive win. We'll get to West Virginia in a second. But by December, Avery Johnson is going to be a guy that any defense, if they get in the playoff, any defense is going to have trouble with him.
Yep, I think so. I want to ask, because Nathan put this in the chat. I want to say we saw it. Maybe give like a quick synopsis on your take on this. He said BYU wins against Kansas State and an SMU team and keeps looking better and better. But please, Doug and Bill, tell me how Kansas State and Iowa State are still the best teams in the Big 12. You feel like we're not giving BYU its due here? So
I do think the BYU defense is really good. I like Oklahoma State stinks. And that was a banger down to the very end. I thought Kansas State and Iowa State maybe still have like a better depth of talent than BYU does, but they do have some playmakers. They had multiple guys like on our defense, on our Old North defense. I think they have good secondary players. Jack Kelly's a really good player. Tyler Batty's a really good player. And they do have multiple guys like Chase Roberts made a clutch 4th down catch. That is a clutch dude. LJ Martin ran really well. Like they have I think their running game is coming around. And I think I was underrating Retzlaff like during the course of the season. So I thought they blitzed Kansas State. Right. Just like it was a downhill avalanche that it just absolutely got away from Kansas State. And that does not take away from BYU, but that was a huge win at home. And then like even Friday night's comeback was at home in front of a crazy crowd. And how awesome was that? So I guess if you want to accuse me of underestimating by BYU. That's probably fair to do. But I've also said that BYU is on the TCU path, which is, did they ever convince anybody they were the second best team in the country? I don't know. But did they make the national championship game? Yes. So what does that mean? Because I don't want to be a place that talks about, somebody was making a point. Did Nick Saban say something about power ratings on College Game Day? Because I saw somebody was like, see, power ratings are fool's gold. Power ratings are nonsense. Power ratings are something that SEC people want because you can go by recruiting ratings instead of results. Power ratings are figure skating. Competitive sports where two teams play each other are based on the scoreboard. Power ratings allow you to ignore the scoreboard because somebody had a better rating in their recruiting class 3 years ago. Power ratings are a joke. And if you build your show and your point around power ratings, you're a fraud. Scores matter. But like when would I rate BYU ahead of them? Like I would never put BYU ahead of Kansas State in a poll, right? I would never do that. Like if they played each other in the Big Ten title game, let's have a discussion. The Big 12 title game, let's have a discussion. So it's a great point. Call me on it. Call us on it. Let's put them all in a pot together now. I probably with the guts they've shown, and I do think they have a depth of talent on defense, and I think they've shown they have multiple playmakers offensively. It's probably not fair to say that K-State and Iowa State are better, but I also wouldn't say BYU is better. But if we want to make a line, and then BYU kicked K-State's butt, so that's real too. But I think they're the three best teams in the Big 12 by far, and I think they're in all three are in a very similar spot right now. But it's a great question, and you should call us on that.
I come out of this weekend with all three of them, I think, on an even plane. Okay. I think, especially given some of the injuries Iowa State has at linebacker right now, I think BYU has the best defense of the three.
Okay.
They all have gamers at quarterback. BYU's rushing attack is rounding in the form. Like I think there's a good point about what BYU has done at home, and like it went on the road and beat SMU, but SMU was like still messing around with its quarterback then. Its other road wins are at Wyoming and at Baylor, but it also like doesn't. It's the benefit of its schedule, I guess. Like it has to play at Utah, but Utah's currently losing 10-0 to TCU. Like there's not really a daunting road trip left on BYU's schedule. That's not BYU's fault. They're taking advantage of it, right? Yeah. So I like where BYU's at. They've really impressed me. They've changed my mind week after week. So I actually think all three of these teams are in my mind like the co-leaders at the top of the Big 12.
I don't think
they are record-wise, but talent-wise, I think they are.
I don't think there's anything false about BYU.
Yeah.
What we had been saying previously, I think, was a nod to how good we think Iowa State and K-State are. Mm-hmm. So, but they've all played crazy games now, right? K-State could have lost at Tulane. Iowa State could have lost tonight. Like they've all played. BYU could have lost on Friday, but they didn't.
Yeah, right.
So they've all played some crazy games, and they're all better than LSU. How about that? Can we all agree on that? LSU at number 8 is a joke, and they all should be.
I think it's a great place. I think it's a great place to land with the conversations. They're all better than LSU.
How about that? Yeah. So that's a great win for K-State tonight. We think they're getting better and better. Mm-hmm. Do we think Neal Brown could be fired on Monday?
I think he could be. We were talking about this in the first half. I think it was 17.
It was 17-10 at halftime. I think it was 17-10.
It was 17-3 when I messaged you.
Okay.
Okay. It was 17-3 after a pick six, where I messaged you and I said, "Do you think Neal Brown might get fired?" Based off of if it turns into a real runaway, and also with what he said earlier in the week leading up to the game, do you think Neal Brown might get fired? Which like got the conversation percolating. It ends up being 45-18, and then also in the second half of the game, West Virginia is without Garrett Green, it's without Wyatt Milam, and it's without Jaheim White. So maybe I am cooling on that a little bit, but I think it is still potentially on the table, given that West Virginia was non-competitive at home again.
When you messaged me that it was 17-3, then West Virginia went on a great drive all the way down the field and scored. It was 17-10. And then they drove again and got 4th and 1 inside the 5 right before the end of the half and went for it and didn't kick a field goal and called a terrible play on 4th and 1. Got stopped. I think Garrett Green might have gotten hurt on that play. And then they went to halftime. Yep. They should have gone to halftime either 17-13 or 17-17 if they call a better play. They go 17-10, their starting quarterback's hurt, and then it's over. So this is really more of a reaction to the quote that is going to haunt him for the rest of his days in Morgantown about, hey, just come and have fun. But they had a super interesting home schedule this year with Iowa State, with Kansas State, with Penn State, and they haven't won any of them. So like they have 4 justifiable losses, but they've stacked up. And if you think like he's not the guy, it's not about the result. It's not about, but also it's a big score. So it's not like they lost in the last seconds. They did get blown out in the second half, all your points withstanding. If you think he's done at the end of the year, some people have made the point already that like at other points in other seasons, there have been multiple coaches fired by now. Nobody's been fired yet. So this would give West Virginia a jump on things. And he just turned off so much of the fan base. It's like, who's going to come watch West Virginia the rest of the year? So I'm not calling for it, but I wouldn't be surprised by it on Monday if West Virginia says we're making a change and we're going to jumpstart the search and have an interim coach.
I don't think it would be like a rash decision. He's 34-33. He is now 3-17 against ranked opponents. He's 0-3 this year, and they're all at home. It's bad. It's pretty bad. And like there were high expectations this year that West Virginia is not living up to, right? So I'm just look, there's a lot of angry fan sentiment on social media right now.
But don't you think there are donors who are like, he doesn't get it? He's not.
I think he very clearly doesn't get it. I think he told you he doesn't get it last week, right?
Yeah.
So he dug his own grave. So I'm not. We have criticized / made fun of like Southern programs being a little too quick to pull the trigger on a coach, right? But this is not.
But
this
I don't think this would be quick. No,
this is not that. He's had a chance. Yeah.
So a couple years ago, there was a national championship head coach who left an SEC program and went in and worked in TV for a year and then came out of retirement to coach his home state team because he understood that program. He was raised on that program and it was a special place to him. And Urban Meyer, after a year in TV, came to Ohio State and eventually led Ohio State to a national championship. There happens to be a national championship winning former SEC head coach who is currently working in TV, who is from West Virginia. And we would officially like to start the hashtag Saban to West Virginia. Tell me there's not a 5% chance of it happening. And Joe Manchin's retiring from the Senate, and he's Dick Saban's friend. Joe Manchin can go be the AD.
Oh, that's not bad. Joe Manchin can just like go up and down the state barnstorming and get some money for the football program. And Nick Saban can coach the boys up. He's 72, right? He's 72 years old. But I don't know, man. Like he's on game day with Pat McAfee. They talk about being from West Virginia and how prideful they are about that an awful lot. I'm just saying.
McAfee's not a coach, so you can't go get him.
No, but I'm saying like Saban doesn't shy away from it. And McAfee's got a ton of money too. He can pump some money into the football program. There's a pathway, is all we're saying.
Do it for 3 years. Saban to West Virginia. 3 years. Yeah. Do it for 3 years. I don't know. I've heard crazier things. Last one. Tishu and I lost our $500 bet hard because we thought that Iowa's defense would go up to East Lansing and handle turnover-prone Aiden Childs. And Aiden Childs came out and looked like he might be the best quarterback in the SEC too if he played there. 22 of 30 for 256, a touchdown and a pick. To be fair, on an early drive, like one of the first drives of the game, they drove for a bunch of field goal drives in the first half. He also hit an Iowa.
They drove for a bunch of field goal drives all game. Noah Kim kicked 6 field goals. Or Jonathan Kim, excuse me, Jonathan Kim.
All North.
Yeah.
Was he all North kicker? He was all North second team kicker, he was right? On our KOTN Wednesday show, because our first team kicker got a kick blocked. Michigan.
He did.
Dominic Zavada got his kick blocked. So anyway, it was like, hey, what's going to happen? Is Jonathan Smith going to go into the bye week and like Aiden Childs is going to figure out how to be a mature quarterback? And it's like, yes, that's exactly what's going to happen. So the other thing is, and you've talked about this, Jamari Harris is the good corner for Iowa, right? Mm-hmm. And they just threw at the other corner all day.
Yeah.
All day.
Well, the other corner and the nickel, because Sebastian Castro was hurt and tried to play, and then they took him out of the game.
Yeah.
So it was a beat up Iowa secondary. Yeah.
So Aiden Childs was great, and also Michigan State held down Caleb Johnson all game again until he broke off a 75-yard touchdown run in the second half to cut it to 25-20, and it was like, okay, here comes Iowa. And then guess what Aiden Childs did? Aiden Childs led a 9-play, 75-yard touchdown drive on which he was 5 of 5 for 61 yards to put the game away. So, Aiden Childs, you cost hungry children $500, but man, that was kind of a thing. And Iowa is kind of in the same boat as Michigan. I'm not sure they have a functional quarterback.
They don't have a functional quarterback. Cade McNamara was he had like a good drive, maybe a drive and a half in the second half that was all right, but he was awful in the first half, just missing wide open throws.
So he was 11 of 23 for 150 passing yards for the game. Some of that was late when they were just like desperate. He was 3 of 7 for 35 late. So like before it was desperate time, he was 8 of 16 for 115. Killer pick. Threw like an absolutely like game-ending killer pick.
Yeah.
And
second down arm punt.
You can't. But the thing was, you and I thought that he should have been benched at halftime. Did we agree on that? That Brendan Sullivan should have started the second half. And Kirk Ferentz didn't do that. And then on the first drive of the second half, Cade McNamara marched him down the field for a touchdown. And it's like, Kirk Ferentz, no ball knower. Who are we? Get Brian back in the building. Who are we to question Kirk Ferentz? And then it was like, oh no, that was one drive. He still stinks. I don't know what they should like. So Iowa's done as a playoff thing, like whatever. Their season's not over. But if you thought Iowa was a playoff dark horse who could backdoor something, and they lost to Iowa State and Ohio State, but they finish it out at 10-2 and beat Nebraska on Black Friday, and all of a sudden are they an interesting conversation for the 11th seed? It's like, no, they have 3 losses. And it's just it is frustrating to watch any one-arm team where you're good at one thing and terrible at the other. And I do think Tim Lester is doing a better job than Brian Ferentz did last year. I think that is true, but it's wild. I don't know what happened to Cade McNamara. Now, I guess I do know what happened. He got hurt last year pretty seriously. So that is probably contributing to this, but he's not the same quarterback he was in 2021 with Michigan. Michigan had better players around him than Iowa does, but almost everything we say about Michigan, great defense. They have a non-functional quarterback and it kills them. What is different about the conversation? And then both teams have a great running back, whether it's Kalel Mullings or Caleb Johnson. Like, is it the exact same conversation? Michigan and Iowa?
Yeah. And like even good defenses, but suspect secondaries.
Yeah.
Especially if Michigan's not going to have Will Johnson. Yeah. Yeah.
That was the thing. Like,
Michigan State can beat Michigan next week.
Okay. Yeah, because they're throwing on those guys more than you thought. Because the first half is like, okay, field goal. They're holding them in the red zone. Like if they can get anything going offensively, but then that drive to get back to 25-20, and they missed the 2-point conversion that would have cut it to a field goal. Like you felt like, okay, here it comes. And to give up a 9-play, 75-yard drive where the 19-year-old quarterback is 5 of 5 for 61 yards, it's like that's not the Iowa defense that we would expect, but because they are suspect at that opposite corner spot. And to your point, so we were talking about our $500 bet. If you don't watch our Friday morning Bet to the North show, T. Shoe and I, Tyler Shoemaker, make a $500 real money bet for charity every week. We were 5-2 on the year. Now we're 5-3. We also missed our parlay. We had a Texas-Tennessee parlay. So we're still up like $1,200 for the year. We were up $1,800. But as soon as Sebastian Castro was like probably not going to pay, you basically told us to flush our $500.
Yeah. Once there was a second vulnerable spot in that secondary, it felt like a difficult challenge. And then Nick Marsh and Montori Foster both went over 100 yards. It's like they don't. Oh, we have Jamari Harris. It's like, cool. We'll ignore him. We'll put our guys on the other guys.
So let me ask you a question, Landis. We've got 300 people in here right now at 12:18 in the morning. Like, part of me is like, all right, we've gone 80 minutes. We should probably end the post-game show. But also part of me just wants to party all night with 300 people who want to talk about Northern football. I don't want to abandon them, but like, we should probably go. Is that right? We should probably go. You're the chief content officer. I'm just a guy in a backwards hat who swings a sword around.
We can keep talking. There's no rules against it.
Okay. So let's run through this a little bit. If you want to leave, you're allowed to leave. But if you're going to be here, we'll talk a little bit more about this stuff. And we'll build up to this on Monday. And I want to have a playoff discussion on Monday because I think it's real. Here's what happened in the North today. Notre Dame beat Georgia Tech. Cincinnati beat Arizona State. Kansas beat Houston. Colorado beat Arizona. BYU beat Oklahoma State on Friday night, and Maryland beat USC. Let's talk more about that game.
Yeah.
The losers in the North who didn't lose to a Northern team. Also, Iowa State beat UCF. Let me put that in the win column. North rules, South drools, ISU. The two Northern losers who didn't lose to a Northern team, Boston College lost to Virginia Tech on Thursday, and Rutgers lost to UCLA 35-32. The only other Northern losers lost head-to-head Northern matchups. Indiana beat Nebraska, Illinois beat Michigan, Wisconsin beat Northwestern, Oregon beat Purdue on Friday night, Michigan State beat Iowa, and Kansas State beat West Virginia. We had 6 Northern teams off. I thought Maryland was dead, and like that, again, like Mike Locksley gets a lot of heat, but to rally like that, and I can't pretend I watched every play of Maryland USC. I understand that it is hard to travel, and this is like the travel stats are still through the roof, right? USC. Now, UCLA went to Rutgers and won. We'll talk about that in a second too. But like, I actually think that like Lincoln Riley at the moment, and I think since he's been at USC, Lincoln Riley has done a terrible job for what he's being paid. And like Mike Locksley sometimes gets a lot of heat and took over play calling duties last week. And Maryland found a way to win that game. Clearly, USC has more talent. So, like, that's a great win for Mike Locksley, man.
Yeah, Mike Locksley was kind of like pounding his chest a little bit during the week, right? Like saying, I've earned the right to make some changes. You got to trust me on making these changes. And then they go out. Like, we're not saying that USC is awesome, but it's a pretty good win for Maryland. They rushed the field afterward. They were feeling pretty good about having USC come in there and beating them. So that's a pretty important win for them. Did you see how Maryland got the opportunity to come back and win the game? Did you have eyeballs on it?
I don't know that I did have eyeballs on that.
Okay, so Maryland was down 6 with 1:49 left, and USC was lining up to kick a field goal that would have effectively iced the game. Maryland blocked it.
Wasn't it on 4th and 1, like within the 5-yard line or something?
I don't remember. No, it wasn't. It wasn't that deep in Maryland territory. It might have been shorter, a distance ago though. But kick gets blocked and ends up in the hands of a Maryland defender, and he's getting tackled to the ground, and he laterals it to a teammate, and then that teammate runs 29 yards to the plus side of the 50 to give Maryland the ball on the 47, and they got a defensive pass interference call that helped set him up too. But Billy Edwards was awesome. He had a play on that drive at the end where he was about to get sacked and just like threw a chest pass to Ty Felton in the middle of the field. And got him a first down, and then he won the game on a run with 53 seconds left, and they took a 1-point lead, and they won by 1. And Billy Edwards for the game finished 39 of 50 for 373 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then he had the rushing touchdown to win the game. He was awesome.
So that's a 4th and 1 at the Maryland 24. They try a 41-yard field goal with 2 minutes left that gets blocked. Is that a reasonable thing to go up 2 scores there to try to make it 31-22, or is that the coward's way out and believe in your offense and go for it?
I'm probably going for it. Yeah. If it's like 4th and 3 or shorter, I think I'm going for it.
And if you're a genius, shouldn't a genius go for it there?
Yeah. Like, say, for instance, if it's like 4th and 16, like, I don't know, like if Alabama got into a 4th and 16 and tried to go for it at the end of the game, for instance, maybe I wouldn't do that, but 4th and short, I'm going for it. Yeah.
How far away is Lincoln Riley from becoming an offensive coordinator in the NFL? Is he not cut out for this? I don't know. It's like
he doesn't seem like it. He doesn't seem like he cares.
It does seem like he's too cool for school.
Yeah.
And he like ran from Oklahoma. He couldn't get Oklahoma over the top. He certainly was successful there. And also, by the way, like, congratulations, but let's cram it with all the Heisman stuff. Like, who cares? That's not what it's about. It's that you're not there to develop Heisman Trophy quarterbacks. You're there to win games. And so he did win a lot of games at Oklahoma. I get that, but also in a league where they always had more talent than everybody. But he seems not cut out for this, and he has every opportunity there, and he's complaining about stuff, and he does not seem like a coach who has built a culture at all. And so, like, are you just all the way in if you're USC and there's nothing you can do, or are you like, what are we doing here? This is a horrible fit. Let's actually get somebody who's going to care.
I mean, they let Clay Helton stay there for a pretty long time.
Yeah.
I feel like we had multiple I don't know, 3 or 4 seasons worth of dialogue whether or not Clay Helton should get fired, and then that kind of dragged on. So, and Lincoln Riley has at least more on his resume, I guess, than Clay Helton does. So I don't know that USC feels the need to make a move or do anything with Lincoln Riley, but like for this to be USC's debut within the conference, and like the whole thing like started with like Lincoln Riley crying poor at Big Ten media days about how they're out-resourced compared to the rest of the league. It's just like, okay, did you throw your hands up before the season started and just think you weren't going to be competitive in the Big Ten? So, like I kind of think it's done there. I just like they have no juice, and I don't know how they're going to get it back. So I think USC would be reasonable for them to try to rethink that too, but I don't know that they will.
All right, there's like 5 more teams I want to talk about. We'll hit on them quickly a little bit. We won't double back. You can go back. We apologize if you missed earlier in the show, but we ripped Alabama and we ripped Tennessee, and we said Texas has a quarterback controversy and that Kirby Smart has a black heart. So like, if you're here for that, like we did cover that, and you can go back and find it. I do want to talk a little bit about Notre Dame because clearly this is a playoff conversation that matters. 31-14 in Atlanta. Maybe figuring some things out. 20 of 29 for 203 for Riley Leonard throwing it. 10 for 51 on the ground for Riley Leonard and 2 touchdowns. Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love combined 22 carries for 105 yards. And also Jeremiah Love caught 3 for 57. I don't think Notre Dame is a perfect team. In part because they've had so many injuries, but is Marcus Freeman doing a little bit of what we talked about with Brett Bielema, which is like, okay, this is what we have. How do we win with it? And they're finding a way to win. And if they continue this, and by the way, at one point it looked like, okay, is that USC Notre Dame game on the last game of the regular season going to be like a playoff play-in? That's going to be like, can USC go to a bowl?
Yeah.
Like USC blows. USC, which beat number 8 LSU, which we would like to remind everybody, including anybody out there who's watching who's an AP voter. If you know an AP voter, please call their house and tell them that number 8 LSU lost to USC, and USC has now lost to Maryland, Penn State, Minnesota, and Michigan. The Notre Dame path to the playoff is kind of sitting there, and if Marcus Freeman and this staff are just figuring out what it takes week to week. And now Riley Leonard's not a young quarterback like Avery Johnson, but he's a new quarterback for them. Like, is this the figuring it out path that gets Notre Dame to 11-1 and comfortably in like the 6th seed?
I don't know about a 6th seed. Like, I think the Notre Dame playoff conversation is still more about the path than it is the quality of the team. Like, the defense is good, but it's really banged up, and they played a Georgia Tech team that didn't have Haynes King today. Yeah. So I want to see what that banged up defense looks like against a more complete offense. But like, who's really going to test that? Like, Notre Dame still plays Navy and Army, and those are the 2 tests remaining. It's Navy, Florida State, which is awful, Virginia, which is not very good, Army, and then USC, which is like seemingly falling apart. So the pathway to 11-1 is definitely there. Like, but I also. I don't know. I'm not going to be shocked if Navy or Army get Notre Dame either, with the way that those 2 teams have played this year. So we'll see. Like, it's very much alive for anyone who thought it was dead after the Northern Illinois loss. It's not. Can Notre Dame continue to get by with the litany of injuries it's had, and can Riley Leonard keep progressing as a passer? I think are the 2 biggest questions. And this was probably another step in the right direction for Riley Leonard as a passer. Yeah. He didn't throw a touchdown, but he was efficient. So it does feel like they're starting to figure some stuff out there, but it is still a limited offense because it's mostly about running the ball, but it's been pretty effective to this point. And it has, like, it beat Louisville with this plan, right? So I think there's a pathway for Notre Dame to kind of grind its way to what we're talking about.
And Louisville almost beat Miami today. I still think Miami's a fraud.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate a world where Florida State and USC are still on Notre Dame's schedule, and by far their toughest remaining games are against Army and Navy. Army and Navy are machines. I checked this with T-Shoe today because Army was grinding it out again against East Carolina and said, we know Army's undefeated. I said, what are they against the spread this year? And T-Shoe was like, they're 6-0. And then East Carolina backdoor to push on Army today. They were a 17-point favorite. And they won by 17. But then Navy was also a machine today. Like, they are both undefeated, and they are like destroying people and doing exactly what they want to do on offense all game. And for a Notre Dame team that has significant defensive injuries, they get, is it Navy? No, I just looked at the schedule.
It's Navy first. So it's Navy
next week.
It's Navy next week.
Saturday.
Yeah. It's in the Meadowlands. It's not
okay.
Indianapolis. Yeah.
And then Army at 7 p.m. So next week it's at noon. And then November 23rd, Army at 7 p.m. and another neutral site game. So I don't know. Like we have not talked a ton about Army and Navy on this show, but we probably should start doing more. And they're in the North, by the way. We take them in the North, even though they defend all of America. They're in the North. So let's not put the cart before the horse on Notre Dame, but also credit to Notre Dame with all their injuries for figuring it out. I want to talk in a group about two teams that moved to 5-2 today, because on the Tuesday show, I did do a little thing about Michigan, Cincinnati, and Wisconsin can affect the playoff race. And Cincinnati and Wisconsin, I think, are still squarely there. And maybe Michigan gets somebody. I don't know. But Cincinnati beat Arizona State 24-14. Arizona State was without its starting quarterback, but that's still Cincinnati taking care of business. Brendan Sorsby didn't throw for a ton. I know this because he was my Dragon Statue quarterback for the week, but he did run for 2. Corey Kiner had a pretty good game again. That's a nice 24-14 win at home. And for all the people who were like off the Scott Satterfield bandwagon at the beginning of the year, like Cincinnati, I still think could. I did that part by myself. Do you think Cincinnati could play a role in this Big 12 race at some point? They only have the one Big 12 loss at this point, because one of their other losses is they have a 3-point loss to Texas Tech, which is a Big 12 loss. And by the way, Texas Tech had been undefeated and lost to 0-3 Baylor today, undefeated in the conference, and then they lost to Pitt. So Cincinnati only has one Big 12 loss, which is the same as Kansas State, is only one more than Iowa State and BYU. So like Cincinnati's right there. And again, Xavier Henderson and Joe Royer is a pretty good 1-2 punch. I think it's just so funny how this worked out, right? That Brendan Sorsby was at Indiana, then transferred to Cincinnati. Curtis Workett, and I think like Curtis Work's been a little more efficient, but like Brendan Sorsby, it's like, hey, Brendan Sorsby left Indiana. I wonder what happened there. It's like, he's really good. So I thought there was a really Arizona State's a mess, and Kenny Dillingham lost his mind after the game and said they're going to invite every student on campus to come be the kicker. I don't know what happened. How many field goals did they miss?
I don't know. I didn't see the game. I was box score watching, so I didn't look to see how many they missed.
But again, it could be better, but this is a really nice 5-2 record for Cincinnati so far, and I think they are certainly good enough to worry the Big 12 teams they have left on the schedule. Which includes, I think, Iowa State and Kansas State.
That's the thing. It has Iowa State and Kansas State, but those are both going to be road games for
both
Cincinnati.
On the road.
And it also has to go to Colorado. So it's like the three teams remaining on its schedule that it could potentially beat, and then like upset the Big 12 race are all on the road. So those will be tall tasks. But yeah, I like the season that Cincinnati's put together. Like they're going to get to a bowl, right? I think they got to get one more win. Even if they don't win any of those 3 games we're talking about, they would have to beat West Virginia at home or TCU at home. Like I think they could do that. So it's been good. Cincinnati's defense, like I thought, it was against Jeff Sims, backup quarterback for Arizona State, but it had 2 4th down stops. I think it had another takeaway. So it's not like it's not a team filled with a ton of firepower, but there are some dudes on both sides of the ball you definitely have to worry about, especially on offense with the guys that you mentioned. So I think they could play a role in the race. I don't know that I'd pick Cincinnati to win any of those 3 games at the moment, but I think they could be a little pesky there.
Let's scare somebody. I have us talking on this show on a Saturday night about, oh man, Cincinnati scared somebody.
Arizona State missed 2 field goals, 0-2.
Okay. And what's better than a head coach who they stormed the field last week because they were so excited about their win? Nothing like a head coach coming in and blaming the kicker. It's just the best, isn't it?
Yep. Can I before we talk about Wisconsin, can I shout out one other northern game that we did not talk about at all this week? That is of tremendous import.
I know what it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, North Dakota State, South Dakota State.
Yeah, other shows do that stuff. We don't really do that here, but
But it's
fine. It's northern. No, it's northern. You're right.
Just want to mention that it happened. It is in the north, and North Dakota State, which I think had not won the Dakota Marker game in like 5 years, 5 tries, won 13-9 on a touchdown with 2 minutes left. So
it
was number 1 versus number 2 in the FCS.
Yeah, that's the team I thought I picked to beat Colorado. beginning of the year. We had that right around the show. So I shouldn't say that we don't talk about that here. We're just very busy because there are frankly, hashtag too many good Northern teams. Am I right?
That's right. That's right.
Hashtag too many good Northern teams. You know what's not a hashtag? Too many good Southern teams, especially too many good SEC teams. I actually think would violate. I'm not sure that Twitter has any policies anymore. That would violate the policy. That's hate speech. Too many good SEC teams. Hashtag too many good SEC teams. Try it. You should get, I think, auto reported for that. That rings the phone in Elon's house. He's like, there's a lot of stuff that they're tolerating on Twitter right now. Not that. That's just an outright lie.
Yeah, you can't say that. Yeah.
Wisconsin hosts Penn State next week. Are they at the point where like that's going to be a thing? Because Northwestern's defense is decent, I still think. And they didn't roll over them, but 23-3 at Northwestern. Braden Locke, 14-24 for 160. And they're running the ball again. Tommy Walker, 23 for 126 as a team, 43 for 199. That's not, it's not even 5 yards per carry. It's not like they steamrolled them, but they're dedicated to it. How do you like that, though? 43 runs, 24 passes. Like, does this feel like, and they kind of held down, they held down Northwestern. Jack Lausch was 9 of 24 for 82 yards. Does this feel like a Wisconsin team that has a chance to get somebody? Because as I was saying on Tuesday, they have Penn State at Camp Randall this week, and they have Oregon and Camp Randall in a couple weeks.
Potentially. I think maybe the thing that is most interesting to me is that Wisconsin has played well enough in the lead up to this game against Penn State that Camp Randall, I think, is going to be pretty nasty, which would give the Badgers, I think, a puncher's chance against Penn State, right? And I think that there's enough there with Penn State's offense, like still trying to maybe figure out what it wants to be. And we'll see if Wisconsin can run the ball like that against Penn State. But they have a lot of confidence, and the fan base should be excited by what they've seen, which I think makes for a potentially tricky situation for Penn State next Saturday.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about that, but it's not like didn't you think, I thought that like Wisconsin kind of would be dead by now?
Yeah, I thought Wisconsin was dead. Once they lost Tyler Van Dyke, I like wrote them off entirely, and I said that I didn't think Braden Locke had the goods to win football games for Wisconsin, no matter who they were playing, and I was wrong about that. He's played pretty well, I think, and he's built on it week after week. This was they had really put it on like a bad Purdue defense, and then a Rutgers defense that was really shorthanded. Northwestern's defense, which was pointed out to me on Twitter by I can't remember who, but thank you for pointing it out, that like at least by SP Plus had a top 25 defense.
That's our guy DJ Esquire DJ.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
He's a loyal viewer.
It was a point well made because I was a little dismissive of both these defenses when we previewed the game. And Wisconsin put 359 up there and averaged like 5.5 yards per play and didn't score a bunch, but it moved the ball. So that was a little bit of evidence that the progress we've seen from Wisconsin's offense, I think, has been at least somewhat real.
Yeah. Two more games. Let's talk about. I think people are turning on Rutgers, and it makes me a little bit sad. Oh, hold on a second. My Velcro. It's my Velcro, but I don't want people to think that this is a show that does not respect the Indiana Hoosiers. So UCLA beat Rutgers 35-32. What was the onside kick thing that you were talking about? Because I missed that.
Oh, so I turned my head away. So I think there was an onside kick at the end of the game. Rutgers got down by a field goal, and then UCLA recovered the kick and then ran it in for a touchdown. And I turned the TV off, and then I went back and looked at the box score, and the touchdown never counted. I actually don't know why the touchdown didn't count. There must have been some kind of procedural thing, maybe like somebody's knee was down or something. So I don't know why that touchdown didn't count, but they basically just bounced an onside kick right into the hands of a guy from UCLA who caught the ball on a full sprint and ran into the end zone untouched. And I thought that was an extra touchdown for UCLA, but it didn't stand for some reason.
So it's 35-32, and I think Rutgers fans are getting frustrated. They had a couple of their defensive guys back. We talked about when we broke the game down on Thursday. Again, last week, they had maybe 5 of their 6 best defenders didn't play. So Aaron Lewis, their great defensive end, still didn't play today. We know Mohamed Toure is out for the year. Robert Longerbeam at corner was back. I think Powell, the linebacker, right, was back. So
I think Flip Dixon played.
So that was good.
Aaron Lewis didn't play. Did you say that?
Aaron Lewis did not play. That was rough.
And Wesley Bailey also did not play.
So I don't know what to think about Rutgers. Like UCLA is not very good. We were talking about body clocks. This was this was one of my best bets on Bets of the North was this under at like 41, and it went to 67. They didn't stop UCLA at all, but they tried to hang around, like they fought, and they're so hurt. And I just are they blowing it? Like they're 1-3 in the Big Ten now, but I think we kind of understand why. I don't want to like give them a pass on the injuries necessarily, but I also don't want to be dismissive of them. And I definitely am getting a vibe from some of the stuff on Twitter, and I think in the New Jersey media, that like they're very, very frustrated with Rutgers. Ethan Kalak-Manis, 18 of 30 for 287 today. Kyle Monangai, 19 for 106 and 3 touchdowns. It's a tough one, brother. I don't know what to think.
This one rises to the level of frustration for me. UCLA is bad. Like UCLA is bad. You had them in a tough spot coming back across the country again. And maybe USC or UCLA, is not. No, they're both bad. UCLA is not quite as bad as maybe their record indicates. Perhaps there are some pieces there that we're not being appreciative enough of. But Rutgers should win this game. So I think if you want to chalk up the Nebraska loss to a little bit of bad luck, with the touchdown that Kyle Monangai seemed to score that was ruled short, if you want to chalk up the Wisconsin loss to just being really banged up on defense, I don't know how you explain this one away, right?
It's like still banged up. They're still banged up.
They're still banged up, but I still think you should be able to hang with UCLA even if you're down to a couple of defensive starters. The thing about it's like UCLA only punted twice and Rutgers only punted twice. Like both teams like kind of move the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
Rutgers had 4 touchdowns and a field goal, and it turned it over with a pick. And then their other 3 possessions were 2 punts and the 1-play drive at the end of the first half. So like the offense kind of did its thing. It just, I don't know, but probably should have ended another drive or 2 with a touchdown. Their field goals were kicked from the 17-yard line and the 31-yard line, but I believe we're both on like 4th and 10. So it's not like they were taking cowards field goals either. So it just didn't finish a couple of drives. I think the thing about Rutgers that people maybe find most frustrating is that even prior to some of the defensive injuries, I don't think the defense was quite as good as people were expecting it to be.
Yeah.
And now without those pieces, it's obviously much worse. So
they lost their best defensive player for the year before the season. So like
they did.
Mohamed Touré injury is just devastating. And it's just at a place like that, even though Shiana's built it up, it's just you don't have the depth. That's what always shows up, right? But if you think you can compete 1 through 22, you can't compete with the top of the Big Ten 1 through 85. So all right, let's investigate that more. I'll spend Sunday working out my feeling on Rutgers. Tip of the cap to Kansas for finally getting it together, 42-14 over Houston. Tip of the cap to Colorado, also 5-2 with an easy win over Arizona. But I do want to talk about Oregon. It's obviously a huge letdown spot on Friday night, traveling across the country, and they were just like business-like. They just like Purdue was pretty non-competitive, but they didn't run up and down the field. They didn't drop 60 on them, but they were just methodical, and they took care of business, and they went home. And even though Purdue's not good, I thought that showed something by Oregon on Friday night, 35-0 over the Boilermakers.
Yeah, it was a little it got a little Purdue-y, right? There was a little bit of not putting them away, some kind of weird stuff happening, but never felt like the game was out of Purdue's control or Oregon's control, clearly, to win 35-0.
Yeah.
But Dylan Gabriel was pretty sharp, looked good throwing a deep ball again. I think maybe the thing that I don't want to call it impressive because I like Purdue's offensive personnel is just not that good.
Yeah.
But it inserted a new quarterback into the starting lineup last week against Illinois and like kind of ran all over them because Illinois didn't know how to defend a quarterback run. And then Oregon just like smothered it. Like they said Ryan Brown is not going to beat us by running crazy on us. Like he didn't do anything. So there was a little bit of rushing production from like Reggie Love and Devin Mockabee, but that came at the expense of Oregon making sure that they weren't going to get beat by Purdue's backup quarterback running around like a crazy person. So they didn't do that and they shut them down. And I actually thought too, maybe the biggest thing for Oregon from the game is I thought Kenyon Sadiq, who had to play in place of Terrence Ferguson, was awesome. Like he looked like another weapon that you could throw out there now in Oregon's offense that I think maybe can concern some people because he is a tight end who isn't really built like a tight end and kind of like runs routes like a receiver and just looked a little dangerous over the middle of the field. So perhaps another weapon emerging there for the Ducks came out of that game too.
And it's just like handling your business should not be taken for granted. Because let's just think of examples. Oh, I don't know. Let's just say like a team like Kentucky. Because I mean, the thing about Kentucky is they're so good. So when Georgia went to Kentucky and only won 13-12, I mean, the thing about that was that Kentucky was so good. And then Kentucky beat Ole Miss. And then everybody was like, oh, what a great 13-12 win for Georgia in Lexington, because now Kentucky beat Ole Miss and they're so good. Oh, wait, Kentucky the last 2 weeks lost 20-13 to Vanderbilt and lost 48-20 to Florida today, which is a program trying to fire its head coach, and they can't because they accidentally beat Kentucky by 28. Kentucky blows. Let's talk about Vanderbilt, for instance. Like, hey, you got to handle your business against a team like Vanderbilt. Oh, but the thing about Vanderbilt is so good, right? Because Diego Pavia is just an absolute baller, and Vanderbilt is just going to run roughshod through the rest of the SEC and just wait till they get out in the North and take care of business. And then, for instance, they play a Northern team. They played a Northern team today, like Ball State. Ball State is 2-5. They're at 8th place in the MAC, and I'm sure Vanderbilt just rolled them. Oh, wait, it was tied at 14 entering the fourth quarter. Vanderbilt, also a fraud. So when you play a fraud, turns out Purdue's a fraud, you should handily beat them. You should handle your business, because here in the North, we don't backdoor talk. Well, Purdue. Okay. Illinois escaped by the skin of their teeth the other week, right? It was like a miracle Purdue didn't punt for the last 8 possessions, right? Yeah. We did not express admiration for Illinois flexing its resilience against Purdue in that game. Did we? Were we like, I can't believe Purdue did that. My God, Illinois got lucky.
Yeah, we didn't. We weren't pumping up Illinois after almost losing to maybe the worst team in the North.
So Oregon, like, we don't have to have that conversation because Oregon just went to West Lafayette and was like, we're good, 35-0. Mm-hmm. So let's acknowledge that when it happens, because you know who doesn't do that? Georgia. Georgia dorks around. And if they aren't given 5 scoring drives of less than 30 yards by an inept Texas offense that now has a quarterback controversy, do you think Quinn Ewers, like somebody in the Texas administration, was calling Dr. Pepper and saying, make sure you do not play the Quinn Ewers joking about his backup Fansville commercial while he is currently benched for his backup?
Maybe. Did they play it while it was happening?
I was watching. I was like, please play it. Please play the Fansville commercial. Ha ha. Quinn Ewers' backup gets a lot of attention. Ha ha. We now go back to Austin, Texas, where Quinn Ewers has been benched for Arch Manning. Drink Dr. Pepper. Ha ha. That's how they do it in the South. Ha ha.
What if when they showed that clip of Arch and Quinn sitting next to each other, Arch just sort of like raised a Dr. Pepper to his mouth like NASCAR drivers do when they're doing an interview after the race?
Are we in Fansville right now? Are we still in Fansville? Shouldn't we be smiling at each other? Actually, I actually think Quinn Ewers' acting in that commercial is excellent.
Oh, yeah. It's a really good commercial. Like, really well done. Great idea.
Quinn Ewers is like I don't know. He gives me like some River Phoenix vibes or something there, man. I'm like, oh my God, this guy.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is getting it done here. Now, he played like crap against Georgia, but he's a hell of an actor when he's making fun of himself for his backup being so famous. Hey, Sark, man, I'm going to be doing these Dr. Pepper commercials. You're not going to play Arch, are you? No, you came back. We're not playing Arch. Cool. Yeah, that'd be really embarrassing if they ran the Fansville commercial while I was being benched. All right.
Where else are you going to get a Quinn Ewers' River Phoenix comparison? Nowhere else on college football internet are you going to get that.
You ever see Running on Empty? You ever see that movie where River Phoenix's parents are like, they were like radical protesters, and they did a thing, and then they had to change their identity and stuff, and now they're like a family on the run. Really good.
No, I don't think. Is River Phoenix in Stand By Me? Because if he's not, then I've never. Okay, I think that's the only River Phoenix film I've seen. Yeah,
Running on Empty. I think it's like 1988. Really good. Christine Lottie. Oh man, what a film. Quinn Ewers can be in the sequel. after he loses his job for good next week. We could call that. That'd be my headline. And that would be my headline for the Texas loss today if I worked at the Austin American-Statesman, running on empty. And then it would be both of them, and I would put Dr. Pepper cans in their hands for the sad sitting next to each other shot. All right. By the way, also great job, Texas, having a wounded Georgia team coming into your place and getting your doors blown off. Really competent, Sark. We were ready to roll it out for you. That's the only SEC team we don't make fun of is Texas, because we're actually Texas is pretty good. Great job.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. At least Ohio State lost on the road, and they lost by 1. Texas lost at home by 2 scores. What are they doing?
Yeah, their offense looked non-functional for the majority of the game.
And again, for all the frustrated people, and we all certainly understand that there are frustrated Ohio State fans here. Didn't Ohio State look good for many parts? Not all of. We've had a lot of conversations about what Ohio State did wrong. The conversations about what Ohio State did wrong in losing at Oregon are minuscule compared to the conversations about what these SEC teams do wrong when they play big games against each other, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think there are more glaring issues with those teams than there are with Ohio State.
I think Ohio State has had the best losing effort in a big game this year. Congratulations. I'm not sure that anybody feels great about that.
No one wants to own that, but
Texas dropped the turd at home.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia gave away the entire first half to Alabama, and then stormed back and then gave it away again because they had DBs cracking their heads together like coconuts while 17-year-old Ryan Williams ran past them. It's not Alabama looked terrible against Tennessee today. Tennessee looked terrible at Arkansas, right? There's these SEC teams when they lose look terrible. Not terrible for a drive or terrible in a single area. They look like not good football teams consistently. And I don't think that's been the case. Even Illinois at Penn State, you understand what happened, but I didn't think Illinois was necessarily embarrassing. Were they at Penn State? It didn't go great.
I just think it was Illinois didn't have the horses and just tried to hang best it could.
Yeah. And Michigan, that's happened to Michigan, but then we call that out constantly. It's okay, Michigan has a thing that is terrible. And Iowa has a thing that is terrible. And it's why each of them has 3 losses now. So anyway, that's our show. That's almost 2 hours late on a Saturday night. Please come back and see us again. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have a friend of yours. We'd love to have a family member of yours. We'd love to have a stranger that saw your tweet about how KOTN is unique and fun and talk some good ball and you have a good time. So we're so ridiculously grateful to everybody who's here. And we're just I'm trying to, Bill, I'm not afraid to push it more. We're really calling on you to help us. Right. I mean, it's not like, oh, what happened? Why is Doug begging for viewers? It's nobody called and said you're getting pulled off the air in a week. It's just I really would like this thing to be a thing. So you guys are here now and it already is a thing because of you, but we'd like it to grow. That's all. Am I being too desperate, Bill? I feel like an SEC show. I feel like an SEC. I feel like Lane Kiffin. This is what Lane Kiffin's like. Love me. I'm a good coach. Don't leave me at the airport. Right? I feel like I have that energy tonight.
No, I think you're okay. It's coming from a place of excitement, not of a place of.
It is.
I need somebody to make me feel better about myself.
Yeah. We need more viewers, or next week I will stick this sword through my own gullet. No, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, thanks to our producer, Mike Yostowski. Thanks to everybody for being here and being part of it. Monday through Thursday, live at noon Eastern on YouTube. Saturday night, 11 p.m., live on YouTube. Friday morning betting show. That's the deal. That's what we do on Kings of the North at KOTN CFB on Twitter and on Instagram. We're having a good time, Bill, right? Isn't this fun? What a football season.
It's been incredible. And we got some real bangers coming up too. Yeah.
So great stuff ahead. Thanks to you guys for being here. For Bill Landis, I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was KOTN Late Night on Kings of the North.